Welcome to another episode of Home Sweet Home. My name is Rod McCall.
And I'm Scott Nichols.
How would you know if you had a good relationship with your kids? And I want to preface this by, do you think your kids would come to you and talk to you about pretty much anything? Or were they come to talk to you about certain things, but were very guarded on a bunch of other stuff? Or did your kids not really talk to you at all about what was going on in their life?
So my experience has been that every kid is different.
Okay.
And I suppose that makes things a little bit more complicated. So all three of my kids came to us with different things at different times, admitting certain things sometimes and hiding other things other times. It really depended, right?
Okay.
On which kid, and what they were doing. So I had one that was extremely honest and would tell me everything, almost to the point of like, I really didn't want to know that. Like, you could have told me that when you were 25 and, after the fact, and I would have been happy. And we would have laughed about it. But now, I have to address it. And so sometimes, they tell you, they get really honest and tell you some things that maybe you didn't want to hear.
Okay.
And other times, they're hiding things that you are happening, and they're avoiding you and there's signs for that too. Like I could tell when one of my kids was not telling me something and things were taking place, and I generally knew what it was that was happening, and it's troublesome. Of course, these days a lot of that you can figure out because there's ways to track your kids' phones.
Yeah. So
if it's place specific as far as what they're doing, you can figure that out. But it's tough. I think that parenting teenagers is hard.
Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, it's just,
I did not make it easy on my parents.
It's tough because you know that when you were a teenager, you hid things, and that they're doing it. I mean, unless you're completely oblivious.
Yeah.
But the fact is, teens are teens, and they've always been teens, whether it was 1791 or now, right? They're always going to do things that are teen related.
Well, and that's kind of what I ran across a blog the other day, and I was kind of intrigued by it, which is why I thought, well, maybe we could talk a little bit about it. And it was
that is what we do, right? So
we do talk about things.
Do that.
But it intrigued me because I got thinking about, okay, I have two bonus children that are now full-blown adults.
Sure.
But I remember growing, living with them as their mom and I were dating and then got married. And there were a lot of things that I'm going, Sherry, why are you doing this? Don't do this. Do this instead. And she's going, look, I know my kid, shush, and let me do this the way I know to be done. And it turned out she was more right in her way than had I stepped, my way been introduced. But the big question comes down to, do your kids feel safe talking to you?
Sure.
And you're right. Sometimes the stuff that Sherry would learn, her kids were very open with her. And she would learn things as you're going, oh my gosh, I wish I did not know that. Like you were just saying.
Yeah.
And then I think back to me and I'm going, okay, I hid a lot. I talked to my parents, but I hid a lot of stuff. And I think some of the reasons why I hid stuff was that I was always afraid of a lecture.
Sure.
And so, not that I would always get one, just that I felt like I was going to get one. So, just, whatever. They don't understand. They wouldn't get it.
Sure.
They, all these kinds of silly things. And so, in this blog, they were talking about teenagers by their very nature are going to be secretive. And they're not going to be very forthcoming, but there are some signs or clues that we as parents can identify or see if we recognize and go, okay, this is evidence that our kid is hiding something.
Sure.
And I've always come back to, I think kids are embarrassed A lot of the things that they would hide from mom and dad, they're embarrassed about that, about what they do. Now, I don't.
That's possible, right? I mean, I also think that there's things that I did because I wanted to do them and I wanted to keep doing them. And in order to keep doing them without getting in trouble, I'd have to hide it.
Okay, yeah.
Until I got caught. And then there's times where, maybe I was embarrassed by that thing. I'm not going to do it again, but I don't want anybody to know about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's true of adults too, right? Like we hide things.
Yeah.
We hide things from bosses. We hide things from coworkers. We hide things from, the
Spouses.
government. I mean,
no. And
we hide lots of stuff, right? Like, because we don't want to necessarily have to publicly take responsibility for it.
And that's kind of what they're talking about. And you're right. It's natural for kids to be a little shy, private, conceal things. But sometimes, again, they need to process this by talking to us, their parents. And so that's why I thought this article was or this blog post was kind of interesting, and some of the clues that they came up with. And the first one that they discussed was one-word responses. You ask them a question and you get a one-word response. How's your day? Fine. Do anything exciting? No. Or they use the word nothing. Or are you going to be, can you help out here? I'd like a little help. Whatever.
All right. So I'm going to stop you there because that is my absolute favorite one. And I'm going to tell you what I did with my kids on that one.
Okay.
Because I would tell them things all the time and they would say whatever. Right. And what I told my kids, and I was very open with them about this stuff. And if they would, in fact, I would rather they used a 2-word phrase instead of that word because I felt like it showed that they had a little bit more guts. I'm not suggesting that every parent do this, right? But that whatever really annoyed me.
Okay.
Because what it really meant and what I told them it meant was, a 7-letter phrase that's 2 words that begins with F and ends with U.
Forget you.
Yeah, that's not what I'm thinking. But
okay.
We're going to keep it clean.
Okay.
So you can figure out what that means, but that's what it meant. Right.
Okay.
I always told my kids, that's what you're really saying to me. And if you're going to say that, then just say it.
And
right. Just say it to me. Like have the guts to say it to me. That's fine.
Yeah.
Right? I can live with that. It's just 2 words. But then I know how you really feel.
Well,
and that actually got them to stop saying whatever.
Okay. Well,
no, I'm not saying they didn't use other 1-word answers, but they wouldn't say whatever to me anymore. And so that's, that kind of disappeared. Now, as I said, some of my kids were super honest about things and would blurt out whole paragraphs of stuff. And others would be 1-word answer.
Well, the person that put this blog together said their belief was that when your kids are giving you 1-word answers, they're saying that because they don't want from you, the adult, you, the parent, to lecture them or give them unsolicited or unwanted advice or judge them on what they've done. And I have to admit, and I'm very, very guilty, and I need to stop this, but I do this with some of my nephews. Now, some of them are full-blown grown adults. Some of them are still in their teens. And I guess some of my nieces as well. And I look and I'm going, I feel like I need to give them advice based on my experience and my, air quotes, wisdom.
Yeah.
But sometimes because I don't always remember, how did I learn? Epic fails. And I wasn't going to listen to advice from some old geezer. You know what? Look, I don't need your advice. I don't want your advice. So take a healthy dose of shut the heck up and sit down. But I'm going to be respectful. So thank you. Nope. Got to go.
Yeah.
And so I get it. But if we're, as a parent, and we're hearing these terms all the time, maybe we need to reevaluate and take a closer look at what's going on, what's happening in this dynamic.
And I think that's important, right? Like it is really an avoidance, right? When my kids would say whatever to me, it was like whatever, and the intention there is stop talking to me. right? And let's just move on. And it's an avoidance of the issue. That's why I would prefer you just give me the real words, and then we'll have it out, right?
Sure.
I mean, we're not going to be violent or anything like that, but like we'll have that discussion.
Well, tied in
and
with,
that's fine. Like I want to know. Tell me how you really feel.
Exactly.
Right. Let's just do it
because
that's how you have to do it in life.
Well, tied in with that is the idea of if you go sit next to them, well, they kind of move away from your physical proximity, or they won't make eye contact with you because I don't want to talk to you, and they're going to stay glued to their phone. I've seen that with some of my younger nieces and nephews, and that's kind of. And it's a clue that they may have something they'd like to talk about, but they don't want to talk to you about it. And so that's something that, again, that we as an adult, we as a parent can work towards.
And I felt like I wanted you to be able to, as my kids, I wanted them to be able to say whatever to me. Not the phrase whatever, but like whatever they had on their mind, whatever it was that they wanted to talk about. I wanted them to know that you could come to me and you could tell me whatever it was that you were dealing with. And we would have a discussion about it, and I'm not going to judge you for it, right? There might be consequences associated with it, obviously, but I would rather have you tell me than have somebody else tell me.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that that's a good lesson to learn because bosses would rather have you tell them than find out from another person, right? Administrators at school would rather have find out from the teacher than from a parent. You know, I mean, there's all those things that like you want to be upfront and honest with the information so that people aren't surprised. And I would rather, as a parent, not be surprised. I would rather have them just tell me. And then we can address it, right? Because it's the impact I think is less. Like when my kids told me about it, the consequence was lower for me to them than if they didn't.
My parents always told all my sisters and I growing up that a lot of times our punishment was more severe because we tried to hide or lie about it rather than the event itself. Which brings into something else that was mentioned in this blog is that when you start noticing that your children are being very secretive, locked phones or password protected computers that they will not share with you, they're hugging their backpacks, or, they're always behind closed doors.
Don't look in there.
Yeah. Well, and so as parents, giving them freedom and space, but knowing just how much freedom and space. You got to trust them, but how much trust? Walking a fine line. But if your kid is not talking to you, is it because they're afraid to talk to you? They're worried about disappointing you, because that was something I was worried about. I didn't want to disappoint my parents. I wanted to foster this image that I was a great kid and a great son, and I didn't want to do, I knew things I was doing would not feed into that narrative. And so, let's hide that and be a little more secretive.
Sure.
So anyway, but I think that, again, these are just clues that might be out there that your kids are leery, hesitant, reluctant to talk to you.
But I think it's important, as we talk about the kids being honest with us, I think it's important to be honest with them as well. And I think it's important to respect their privacy, which might sound strange to some parents, right? Because I don't have to do that. And that's fine, right? But if you want them to grow up being respectful of other people's privacy, I think, we had a previous episode where we talked about how they model after what you do. So there's the idea that like my kids, they had privacy in their rooms and in their things until they didn't. Like I don't need a warrant to go check it out. And I'm not necessarily going to check it out in private, right? I'm not going to go search your room. I'm going to be like, hey, we're going to go look at this. You're going to be there while I do it, right? Just like they might do when a police show up with a warrant at your house, right? Like you're going to sit on the couch and I'm going to go through this stuff. That's fine, right? But I think that's to an extreme event. I think getting the child to try to reveal the information to you through trust is way more important, right? They need to be able to be honest with you. And I think that goes a long way. Like now, right, I'm 7 years removed from having any teenager really. for the most part. And so, I mean, 2 of my kids are in their 30s this year. So, but I think that the relationship that I had with them as teenagers has fostered itself into a much better adult relationship as well. They don't feel like they have to hide things from me. They don't feel like at 28 or 30 or whatever that they're still hiding something from me. We can laugh about stuff. It's all good.
And that's, I think the point of the article is helping us as parents or adults to recognize if we don't have that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
And something else they talked about was sarcasm. Sherry tells me.
I love that stuff.
I love it, but Sherry says my sarcasm is less funny and more mean. And it's kind of, really? Because it sounds kind of funny to me. But a lot of times what the author of this was saying is that when we use sarcasm, we may think it's playful, but a lot of times it can actually be a mask for anxiety, a mask for frustration.
So there are fun things, right? Like my grandson comes over and he'll be like all coy about like trying to ask if he can play a video game or something. And I'm just like, I wait until he will ask. And sometimes he won't. Like he just gets all coy about it. Like for some reason, I don't know why. Like there's no reason. Like I'm definitely going to let him play video games. I don't care. Right. If that's what he wants to do. But, then he would ask and I would just be, as soon as he finally got up the guts to ask for some reason, I would immediately say no. And then he would look at me funny and I would say, I'm just kidding, man. Right. Like he's 6 years old. So I'm just kidding. Right. Like, of course you can play video games.
Sure.
But that's my sarcasm is, I'm going to play those things up because it's fun. But I immediately let them know that this is just a joke, right? Like,
yes.
We're just playing here. And I think it's important to, you got to walk a fine line as a teen parent.
Yeah.
Right. Or as a parent of 18, I should say.
Okay. Yes.
That you got to walk that fine line of you want to be able to joke with them, but you're not trying to be their best friend.
And that's
a really important piece of this is that you don't want them to be so honest that they come to you with all the things and you're not a parent anymore. You're their best buddy.
Yeah.
Telling them about all the bad things you're doing. And they're just like, okay, that's great. My son told me some things that were bad that he was doing. And I was like, well, I know that when you did it, you were in a safe place. I'm still not loving it. Right. But at least you were in a safe place when it.
I find that it's very tough to walk that line between a parent and a friend.
Yeah.
And as they get older, I don't know. I don't know. Having only been able to raise stepchildren, I can't say what I would do or how I did it.
Sure.
But it was, I totally agree.
Even as adult children, I'm still a parent. I just don't have to do it very much, right? Like we get to be more friends than not, but sometimes it's still, I can say something, and I'll still get from my oldest daughter, "Yes, Dad," right, and that's cool, right? Like I'm still being a parent. I get it that it annoys her, right, and I try to back off from those things, but sometimes I'm offering maybe a little bit too much of my wisdom, air quotes, right?
Yeah.
And, she knows. And I don't need to do that. But it's just
hard not to.
You're a parent, right? So sometimes that's there. But I think we have, I have good relationship with my kids and, we can be friends and I can still be a parent.
Well, it's
a complicated thing.
Oh, yeah. That's why everybody for how many generations have said, I wish kids came with a manual.
Yeah. My one goal in life has always been to, it's not about, getting wealthy or doing any of those things. It's about setting my kids up to have a better life than I had. That's really all I care about. And part of that is who they are.
And that, yes, because it's not just about economic success. It's about many other avenues. In fact, I would argue that financial security is lower down the list in my priorities than it is, maybe they would say. Because I am a firm believer that life is about relationships. It's not about stuff.
Well, you don't take any of that with you. And so my greatest legacy has to be my kids. and
Yes.
what they can do in their relationships and their kids and so forth. That's all that really lasts.
And that's kind of why I liked this blog, is that it was good information that I found interesting, and that's why I wanted to share this.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other topics that was discussed, or another sign maybe that your kids don't want to talk to you, or your teenagers anyway, is that they're more willing to post stuff online than they are to talk directly to you.
Yeah.
And I get that. Sometimes it's nice to put stuff out there on social media. You like the feedback. People applaud you, or, they comment the way you want them to comment.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you're not always going to get the right kind of response.
Yeah.
And, those people online aren't always going to care that much about you the way that mom and dad might. And so the fact that, a kid is looking for affirmation from a digital source
Sure.
is, I think, a pretty good sign that, they don't feel as comfortable talking to you as they do to an.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that we fail to realize as adults and teenagers especially, but as adults as well, is what companies do with social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, everybody has heard the term, but companies use social media to do branding.
Yeah.
And so they're very careful about what they put on social media. We're not as careful about what we put on social media, but you know what?
Mm-hmm.
When we put it out there, we are branding, right?
Yeah.
We are branding ourselves, and it can affect your job market in the future, your employment, your where you might want to live. I mean, it can affect all kinds of things. Everybody's looking at it.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody, from the banker to the apartment complex that might be trying to give you you might be trying to move into, or the job that you're trying to get. Like, they can look up your social media for the most part, because we're probably not all that careful about the privacy settings.
No.
And so they can see it, and they might not want you in there. And so they might bump you for somebody else. And so, we should be careful about those things. But if kids are going to that first, there's probably a relationship problem there between the parent and the child.
And that's why it's important for us, if we can recognize as adults, as parents, some of these clues of what's happening, then maybe we can take steps to help rectify the situation, to help reestablish some of that faith and trust that our kids can have. And sometimes it's stuff we as adults or parents have to do. And for me personally, I need to stop being as judgmental. I need to stop being lecturer. I don't know what's the right term, but don't give them a lecture, and don't give them unsolicited advice, because that's not what they're looking for. And that's why they don't talk to you, and it's kind of like, but I could help these kids. And it's kind of like, well, in my case, I put a wet blanket on that level of faith and trust.
Yeah.
And so one of the other things that they talked about, and I thought that this was a pretty good clue, I think it's one of the most obvious, but when you are talking to your teen, any type of conversation can blow up into either A, World War III type argument, or they go goodbye, and they just totally shut down and physically walk away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are, and I'm going, yeah, that should be a pretty big sign. And so, because I've had that, more the second
and
one.
when they physically walk away, what do you do?
Well,
or what should you do?
Okay, what should I do? What I should do is let them walk away.
Yeah.
And sometimes I holler at them trying to get in the last word.
Right.
Which is not the right thing to do.
That's not effective?
Well, I haven't found it to be effective
Because I feel
yet.
like when you tell people get over it, they instantly do.
Really?
No.
Okay.
That's my sarcasm getting out there, right? I mean, I think that we have those tendencies to, like, shout that single word or short phrase back to them like we're winning.
Yeah.
And it's just not, right? And sometimes people need their space to think and work through it and get over it. And I also don't think you always have to have a resolution that comes back to everybody just like saying they're sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, you can actually just get over things sometimes, right? So, it doesn't have to be a big production.
Well, and that's kind of what they're saying here, that if you want to reestablish that sense of safety that child has with you, listen to them. Listen to them without interrupting. You can validate their feeling, and you don't always have to offer a solution when you do.
Yep.
And if you miss the mark in your response, okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you were trying to say. I misunderstood where you were going. And, ask open-ended questions so that way they can't hit you with that one-word response. And give them a little bit of space to be silent.
Yeah, space is good.
And let them
except at Disney.
Oh, well, yeah.
Sorry, I got Disney on my mind.
No, that's fine. Vacation time. Anyway, again, it's tough being an adult for a teen, whether, again, parent or in my case, uncle. I want to be the funkle, that fun uncle.
Sure.
I think I missed the mark lately way more often than I hit it. And I guess I wanted to share this because I think I'm talking more to me than I am to anything else. I need to do these things. And I've got one more little nephew that he's in the 5th grade, and I've been trying to do better with him than I did with his brother. And these are the things I need to do.
That's all we can do, right? Is do better the next time around, right? The next time we get an opportunity. And I think that's really important. And, I don't know if we're ready to kind of close out on this, but I did want to bring up from the article that because in the end of these podcasts, it's like, so what do I do? Right? Yeah. What do I do? How can we boil this down to something simple that we can actually do? And I think that, oftentimes we've heard the phrase as from our generation of like, children should be seen and not heard.
That's how I was raised.
That's not a great phrase, right? That's actually pretty terrible. We want kids to be heard. We also hear the thing like, well, it's, you're not the center of the universe. True, right? I mean, there's lots of people and it's nothing revolves completely around you. But as a parent, like my job is to raise them into a happy life, as happy as I can prepare them for. And so to some extent, it is really about them and how I deal with it. And so I think that, some advice from the article here is to make sure that you like celebrate their efforts. They don't have to be successful all the time. Who learns from doing something perfect the first time?
Yeah.
Nobody, right? If you do it perfect the first time, then you already knew. You didn't learn anything. You just did it. So we're all going to make mistakes, and we need to celebrate the effort that they're putting into it, not just the outcome, right? So sometimes the effort doesn't give you the outcome.
True.
Right? And so you want to celebrate the effort so that they try again.
Yeah.
And show that mistakes actually should result in support, right? It shouldn't result in condemnation. It shouldn't just result in a punishment. It should result in some support to help them to get back on the horse, so to speak.
Yeah.
And continue their efforts to success. And I think that that's where we can get. I mean,
yes.
You have to have a relationship with them that's active, checking in with them, talking to them, asking them about their days. I mean, go back to the meal at the table. That kind of stuff. So
no, I'm with you.
I think that's really important. And if that's what people can get out of this, I think that's an excellent start.
Could not agree anymore.
Good.
So,
all right.
Well, that's all I got for this one. So, I guess we'll have a little homework on my part to do.
All right.
So, until next time, I'm Rod.
I'm Scott.
See you later.
Bye-bye.